This video is sponsored by Gale Force 9 and their tenfold dungeon terrain.
Over the years, I've heard loads about the positives of Infinity from Corvus Belli. A lot of love for the game and the miniatures itself. I collect lots of metal miniatures, lots of plastic miniatures from all manner of manufacturers. But I hear a lot about Infinity. Never built anything from it. Is it as good as they say? So I think we should pick the benchmark, which is Warhammer 40,000. My favourite army, of course, which is the Astra Militarum. So I think that we should build alongside each other and paint some miniatures up and see if they really are as good as they say. Now, there's something to bear in mind is the comparison between Infinity and Warhammer 40,000. Majority of Warhammer 40,000 nowadays is plastic kits, whereas Infinity tends to be metal kits. Now, plastic, I love plastic because it's lightweight, easy to convert, kit bash. Usually when you glue it together, often it stays glued, unless you like me use super glue and want to snap bits off. And when you paint it, rarely do I need to varnish it because it doesn't chip off. On the flip side, I've done a lot of metals obviously over the years. Infinity, predominantly all metal. I hate glued metal. It is a nightmare because often it just, you glue it and it will come apart. So that's something to bear in mind when building any kind of metal figures is you will need some robust glue. But the first part of this is like the cleanup side of metals. Yes, you're going to get mold lines regardless of which plastic or metal figures. You're going to get mold lines. I find the metal ones a bit harder. I tend to use a modelling file if I can, or a sharp knife. But you get all the flash as well. That can be quite frustrating sometimes because you go around clipping off all the flash. They're just the extra little feed lines from the two-part molds and stuff. And if you're not careful or you're not as vigilant, you might find one rear its ugly head halfway through the painting process. So sometimes, check twice. So yes, clean up metals I find a little bit more of a chore than I would with plastic models. However, with these Infinity ones, I did find the assembly of them a lot more enjoyable than I was expecting because they're designed in such a way, which is, I was surprised that they have a lot of plugs or little fittings that actually make it a nice snug fit, and once they're glued they stay pretty much glued, so I was quite impressed by that. The only thing I found a bit weird, 40k, a lot of plastic kits out there, you get the model, you glue it to the base, done, you carry on with your life and you paint it. With Infinity you have like little slotters here and there on the models, bottom of their bases or bottom of their feet and stuff. And the actual base itself, it's got a cross, and they have like some little, at the moment of filming, I have no idea what these little things on the side of the base and the front of the base mean, but I know that there's a little thing at the front, and it looks like that's where all the models face. So you need to align the models to be facing forwards, and you've got like a bit of a slotter underneath their base, but you also have to cut your own hole to make it fit in. But it does make it a snugger fit, and you don't have like massive, great big holes all over your base like you would, let's say, with Blood Bowl. If you're trying to build Blood Bowl, you have like the slotters and just a big gaping gap with some of those. So that was interesting. But once I'd done one or two, it was actually quite easy to just cut through because it's quite a thin plastic as well on the bases. So again, not a chore. So normally not a bigger fan of metals, but the metals with this Infinity stuff was actually quite enjoyable to build and clean up, which was a surprise. I was surprised. I'm not normally surprised. That was a surprise for me. Tenfold Dungeon is modular RPG terrain that is designed to make your games nights easier and quicker than ever before. Skip the prep, making setting up and breaking down your terrain achievable in just a couple of minutes. Everything packs away into the box, so storage is easy, and taking it to a friend's house for gaming is easier than ever before. They even fit into a motorcycle top box. The new wave of Tenfold Dungeon sets include 4 new sci-fi settings to add to the previous 4 fantasy releases. The sci-fi dungeons aren't just for RPGs, they're perfect for games like Kill Team, Necromunda, Infinity and Star Wars Legion. You can even use it for AOS or 40k as you can get a good table of terrain. I use it for Warcry loads and it's great fun and quite violent. The dungeons are made to last with durable cardstock designed for use after use. So click the link in the description to skip the prep of your games night and get yourself some Tenfold Dungeon terrain. So in the interest of fairness, we're going to paint both the Ariadne model that we've built and the Cadian in the exact same colour scheme. The reason for this is it is fair, but also it will help me work out from a comparing point of view what the differences are. Like I'm fairly sure with metals, they're a bit slighter, they're a bit finer, the details are a bit sharper, whereas plastics tend to be a bit more bulky, a bit more softer. But also it's just a really good way of looking like how things compare from like doing the cloth in comparison to the webbing, in comparison to the metallics, in comparison to like the leathers. So is there much of a difference between the two, or is there not? Let's find out and get these models painted. First up, we need to start off with a nice undercoat. I'm going with Mechanica Standard Grey. As always, if in doubt, grey is great because you can go anywhere with that. So grey is how they're starting off. Now the first colour I'm going to be using is going to be Alga Green. I'm going to use this mostly for the clothing, fatigues, whatever, but I'm just going to coat over most of the model. So just take your time. You might want to do a couple of coats. It's quite a nice, vibrant green as well. I found mostly you only need one coat, but in some places you might need to tidy up a little bit. So just take your time and coat all over those clothes. With the cloth done, we're now going to move on to picking out all the webbing, chest rigs, pouches, armour, maybe even the putties on the boots. And for this, we'll be using German Field Grey. It's kind of a nice sort of material green grey kind of colour, which is really nice. Perfect for webbing. Now I'm going to move on to picking out some black details. For this, I'm going to use rubber black, mostly for the boots and gloves, because I think black boots and black gloves look cool. But I'm also going to pick out all the guns, or any like machine guns or pistols or whatever, using rubber black as well as a starting point, ready for the next step as well. So just work your way around, picking out all those little black details. Now moving on to the weapons, I like a gunmetal colour. For the Warhammer 40,000 version, I'm just going to pick out some details here and there, like the barrel, like some of the switches, the magazine. I'm going to use gunmetal for that. For the Infinity figure, I'm just going to lightly dry brush that gunmetal over it, so it looks like the actual gun itself has been chipped up a bit. And then I'm just going to get some gunmetal and just do some extra little fine chips as well. Just gives that sense of like it's a black painted metal gun that's been chipped up and used a lot. For the colour of the hair, use what you want. Here I'm just using brown because I've got like extra little brown details like the hilt of the knife, maybe like some extra straps here and there. So I'm just using brown leather because it's a nice brown, and that's for the hair. And for the skin, I'm a fan of cork. I'm going to use cork a lot, so it's a nice colour. I'm going to use that on the Cadian and the arms of the Infinity figure. Again, a couple of coats, take your time on it, just nice, and it stands out against the green and the dark tones as well, so it's a really good contrast for, at least for this test. Then with all those base coats applied, all I'm going to do now is get some Black Knight. Usually I would thin Black Knight down first and apply it over, but I've been finding, certainly following the Richard Gray method, is to apply it on quite heavily and then just get some water or some medium and then just thin it down on the actual model. And I quite like that because you have a bit more control of as to what gets thinned down a bit more. So get some Black Knight on there, drench the model in it and just add some water and move it around. You get a nice blend going across the model. So at this point we now have both our Warhammer 40,000 and our Infinity figure pretty much at a tabletop level, so you can just go off and base them and, you know, carry on with your life. But if you want to add some extra details, tidy up those raised areas, do some highlights on it and stuff like that, stick around for this, because that is the part where we add a bit more finer details for more of an intermediate level. So we're going to move on to that now. Now the first thing I like to do on most of my painting, and certainly with these videos, is one of the key next steps. You could even count this as tabletop as well if you wish to, is just to tidy up with those base colours. Because you've got the wash all over, and once it's dry, it's actually quite nice just to get all those base colours you used and just pick out some of the raised areas. I'm not like saying recoat over everything, just areas like folds of the cloth that stand out. Bits of the leather boots, bits of the chest rig, bits of the armour, bits of the skin. And it's a really good way of getting a second or a first highlight in some cases from one colour. So just go around, tidy up the greens, tidy up the skin, tidy up the leathers, and then just get ready for the bit of highlighting after. And our first highlight is going to be using grass green, and this is for the green fatigues. It's a really nice striking green, and I'm just going to pick out a couple of folds here and there where the light's going to catch. So I'm not going to go mad, just a little bit here and there. Next up is to use camouflage green to highlight up the German Field Grey. Now on the Cadian, I'm just going to use this mostly for like the rucksack, the pouches and stuff, whereas on the actual Infinity model, I'm probably going to do a lot of the actual dark green tones because their details are a lot finer. So I think it needs a little bit more help to pick some of those out. With I guess the difference in comparison here between the Warhammer 40,000 figure and the Infinity figure is the details are slighter, so you need to work into that a little bit more, whereas I think the 40k ones can be a little bit more forgiving because they've got larger surface areas, so you don't have to go mad highlighting everything. At least I don't, because I'm an army painter. I don't have to do that. Moving on from the greens, we're going to go on to highlighting the skin, and for this I'm going to use Radiant Flesh. Again, a nice striking flesh tone that just really helps work with that cork. And I'm just picking out like a couple of extremities, you know, a couple of bits on the nose, cheeks, brows, that kind of stuff. Knuckles, if you've got them on the hands. Now at this point, you could just leave the models, base them, but I felt like the Cadian and the Infinity figure needed something to distinguish the two of them. The Cadian, for me, I like stripes on shoulder pads. I think it looks great. So I'm just going to put some white stripes on the Cadian shoulder pad, and then chip back into that with a bit of German field grey just to make it look a bit scratched and used. And just add a little bit of extra detail to the Infinity figure. I mean, there wasn't much to add. I mean, I was happy enough with the paint job, but those eye lenses needed picking out, so I used a little bit of rubber black so I'd add it at hand. I didn't do this next bit on camera because I didn't think about it until after, but I got a little bit of the gunmetal and just went around the ringlets on the eyes as well. Which you'll probably see in the 360, so just for a bit of smartness, and it was easier to do it really close up to my face as opposed to on camera, so my bad, you didn't see that happen. But we're going to move on to basing now, just to make them all stand out and look finished. Now with the basing for the Infinity figures, I did a bunch already, and I really like this idea of just like not like concrete flooring or like, you know, like paving slabs, but I didn't want to sit there paint paving slabs and make them, so I just went with a really thin scattered dust effect, and I used Lunar Desert. So I applied a lot of water down Lunar Desert to the base, and then just a few like patches of thicker stuff, and it gave it quite a nice sort of like, you know, destroyed street or plaza or something like that. So you just got like chunks of dirt and filth. So I used the same method when I was doing the Cadian as well. Just thinned it down quite heavily, a bit of water around the feet, and then just a couple of little dollops here and there. And to add to that dirty vibe, I got some light clay and then just applied that over the Lunar Desert. I didn't actually shake this, and I did this purposely. I didn't shake it too much because I wanted it not too neat, so I wanted it a little bit thinned down, which was quite nice. So I just used a little bit of thin down. I mean, you could just apply it neat and then use some thinners, but I just know from using this stuff enough that I could just get away with a little shake and it would just be the right consistency as to what I need. So I just applied that to the base and let it dry, and it just gives it a bit of a dirt, crusted dust, destroyed city debris look. And then I went against all my training and everything I believe, and I painted my rim black. I know. Sorry, hashtag Team Steel Legion Drab, I failed you. It's because it was there. It was at hand, literally in reach. I couldn't be bothered to search for Steel Legion Drab, so I went with black. And it's a game, it's for a little board game, so it's fine. So yeah, paint the rims black. Only this once. So there we are, we have painted a Warhammer 40,000 figure and an Infinity figure, and I really enjoyed painting the Infinity figures. I was genuinely surprised. I've heard a lot of people talking about how good they are. Not played the game yet, so I can't make judgments on that. I've painted similar stuff, like there's Hassle Free out there. There's all these other companies that and Crooked Dice that do like amazing metal figures. So it felt similar to that. So I was in comfort zone of that kind of level of metals, but just the details, like the scaling of the weapons, just feels really realistic. Whereas obviously you get the more heroic scale with Warhammer 40,000, so things are like blown out of proportion a little bit more. But weirdly, side by side each other, they actually scale quite well together. So you could actually, you know, feel some of these figures in either system, I guess, if you really wanted to, as long as you're not going to an official tournament or anything. But I enjoyed the process. I found I could cut corners more with the Warhammer 40,000 figure, whereas with the Infinity one, because it was very much like, this is a military chest rig, this is like a belt buckle that has like the clips on it, this is what would look like a genuinely realistic gun. It was a little bit less forgiving, so I had to put a little bit more sort of like thought into like, oh yeah, I need to pick out that thing or pick out this thing a bit more. For the most part, as an army painter, I could still cut corners without it being a bit of a chore. But yes, side by side, I can't really, I know this is going to seem really lame, I can't really pick a winner. I'd always be a fan of Warhammer 40,000 and Cadians because they're mega, but I am now intrigued. I've not seen all the other stuff for Infinity, granted. I've seen the Nomads, which are a bit much for me. They seem like Tau, a bit over the top, but I do like the Ariadne stuff, and that they just feel like modern day military in a sci-fi world, so I actually quite like them. I might use them for other game systems and stuff. But yeah, I am converted to the world of Infinity. It is not what I expected it to be. So yes, I've enjoyed the process, and I think I will paint more. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found something useful from it, whether that's from like a comparison point of view or building assembly point of view or even a painting point of view. If you want to know how to paint more Astra Militarum regiments, check out one of the videos we've got for that. So just look on the channel, we've got plenty of those. Also, we do like stuff on camo as well, so check them out too. I really enjoyed this process. I do think Infinity will be something I'll get my teeth stuck into, so definitely looking forward to painting more of those down the line. I think the takeaway from this as well is you hear stuff and you think, nah, it's not for me, but sometimes you just got to put yourself out there and give something a try, you know, try new things. And I know people will chuck in the comments that I should do that with Blood Bowl, and I will. There will be time, I will do that. But yeah, thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as well, do consider joining our Patreon. We've got a great community, and you probably see all the names come up the side of the screen now. They're all lovely people. If you're as mad as the rest of us, then yeah, come join the Discord and just see all the amazing benefits you can get, and you get to chat to me, Jeff and Pat. It's great. Until our next video, I guess to infinity and beyond.